welcome back to Pop Culture Yearbook. We are glad to have you here. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dave.
Hey, he's here. All right.
Yay!
What?
And tonight we are putting together the second episode in our special summer road trip vacation series for you. So last week we talked about National Lampoon's Vacation. If you're going to do all the vacation movies, then I guess you have to include this one too. So tonight we're doing European Vacation. And why is Dave here? Dave is here because he loves this movie and he's going to offer a different perspective from the other three of us. So Dave, do you want to start with our memories, or how do you want to start this?
Well, let's do that. And so I know that you guys are gonna, for each of the movies, you're gonna be discussing kind of, things that relate to the theme of those movies, right? So for tonight, we're going around and we're talking about what our favorite, I guess, international trip would be.
Yes, or
right?
I wrote down a time where you flew somewhere, because maybe we haven't. I've only been to two places out of the country. So somewhere you flew a long distance or were out of the country. So a trip that is memorable in that way for you. Pete, I think you went first last time. Why don't you kick it off again?
All right. So I haven't been out of all the vacations that we've done, I haven't actually been out of the country a ton, but I do have a couple. We went to Cancun spring break in like 1997. That was a lot of fun. The other one that stands out is when we did a road trip driving through Canada to Niagara Falls. That's one that stands out.
Through like above Lake Superior, like around that way, or how did you?
Yes. Well, we did a circle, kind of. So we went through Canada that way, north of Lake Superior and all the lakes and everything. And then we did Niagara Falls and came back through south of the lakes, through Cleveland and Chicago and everything that way. So we did see a lot. That was the same trip that we saw the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And we went to a Twins game in Cleveland. But the highlight was the Canada portion of the trip, because it was just areas that I had never seen before, and it was a lot of fun. Of course, Niagara Falls was the keystone of the trip, and it was a great time. I would definitely do it again.
Stupid question: is Niagara Falls considered Canada or the U.S. or both?
It's right on the border, so it's like there's one side of it that is the Canadian side of Niagara Falls.
Okay, that's what I thought. Not a stupid question then.
No. We also, by the way, on that same trip, a lot of Twins baseball, because we went to a Rochester Red Wings, which is the Twins minor league game in Rochester, New York, as a part of that trip. So that was a lot of fun. Cool. So yeah,
all right.
Which, you get, it's $15 seats, and we were like right behind home plate, very close to the players, and all that kind of stuff. And the food was cheap. Great time.
I don't really know what is it like in north of Lake Michigan there, Lake Superior. What did you see in Canada up there? Like what do you even do? It seems like there's like nothing up there.
It was a lot of nothing, but it was, again, just like we talked about in a previous episode, where you drive west, and part of the fun is that there's just open interstate. That's how I remember it. It was a little bit more, more trees and woods and everything that you're kind of driving through, but it is interstate. And so not a whole lot that's actually there that really stood out. We did a little bit of camping at like KOAs is where we stayed at for much of that trip, which is good. You get a camper cabin, do it that way. Nothing. I don't recall.
Want to be a KOC, camping across Canada?
I was going to say, do they have those in Canada?
God. Yeah, the one that we stayed at was in Canada, and it was a KOA. Yeah. Oh. I guess you're right. I never even thought about that, Gifford. It's all America, though, because the United States is just one country. North America. Think about it.
Well, maybe that's
that'd be a KONA.
Gifford, why don't you go on next?
Oh my God.
So
don't overthink it.
The vacation that I remember In '04, I went on a trip with my wife's family. It was her parents, her brother, his girlfriend at the time, and Court and I. We took a flight down to Cancun and then made a drive over to Playa del Carmen and stayed in an Airbnb there for a week. That was a lot of fun. We made a day trip over to Cozumel. The girls went shopping, and the
Sorry to
guys.
interrupt. Did you say this was in 2004?
Yeah.
Did they have Airbnbs in 2004?
Well, I'm sorry. We rented a house. I don't know if it was.
I'm sorry. I was just
Whatever.
piecing it
Check.
together.
Fact
rented a
check on
house.
Gifford.
And we did a day trip. The guys went fishing. We chartered a boat and went fishing. We had a couple guys from Chicago on the boat with us. And I remember that was the year that LaTroy Hawkins got traded to the Cubs. So I was telling, they were Cubs fans, so I was telling them they were going to enjoy his pitching. We had, one of the fun parts was we had a housekeeper named Rosa, and we would take her to the grocery store, and she kind of had a menu, and we could pick things off of it. And then we'd take her, she'd pick out the groceries, we'd pay for them, and then every lunch, she would come and clean the house in the morning, make a lunch, and leave it in the fridge for us to reheat. And that woman could make an old boot taste good. It was just amazing. The food that we ate while we were there, it was just amazing. She was wonderful. And she would, clean the house for us. And it was just a very relaxing trip. We kind of just checked out Playa. I know we went to a Senior Frogs one day or one evening.
I've been there.
And our house, you walked like through an alley and you were on the beach. So that was really nice. Spent time out there. It was just a nice, relaxing vacation. It was the year before we had our first son, so we were childless yet at this point. So we were free and fancy free at that point, still in our lives.
Well, that's not the one I was going to talk about, but that relates. One of my first trips out of the country, my wife and I went to Playa del Carmen for our honeymoon. So I relate to much of what you're saying there. We rode bikes from our resort into the town. We went to that Senior Frogs. But the one I was going to bring up here, so I was had just finished my freshman year of college, and my brother had moved to Nova Scotia. And so he obviously lived in Minnesota, and he went to the U of M, and him and his wife got married like literally the week after he graduated college. And then they moved immediately to Nova Scotia, and they lived in Halifax, and they had a job at the university in Halifax. And so the following summer, when I was just finished my freshman year, I was able to go up there and visit. And this was kind of a big deal because I went by myself. And so I wasn't really young, but I hadn't flown by myself like that before. And on this flight, I had to do a layover in Detroit. And so I had to switch planes, and I actually had to switch terminals. And so it was kind of scary, like if I could do that and figure out what to do. And then, so, I mean, I'm this small town kid. I've never been anywhere on my own. I've never been in any kind of, I did have a year in college in Minneapolis. So, I mean, I've been in a different place than where I grew up. But on the little shuttle that I had to take to the different terminal, I was the only white person on that shuttle. Everybody else was Asian, and I don't know why that was. But it was like just kind of an eye-opener. Like this is the first time I've ever been the minority and been in this kind of situation here. So it was just kind of a new experience, and I got to my plane, and nothing happened, and not that I thought anything was going to happen. I'm just pointing out that I was all alone there. But on that trip, I got to play golf with him. I ate lobster for the first time. They always served lobster when people visited. I toured Halifax. They had a couple different places to go. There was a casino. They had some tall ships in the harbor. So it was a cool trip, but it was also cool just because it was like my first time going off on my own and doing something and being around like different situations that I was not used to being in growing up in my sheltered little community. So it was great. That was my trip.
I do want to do a little fact check on myself.
Uh-oh. Oh, on
Earlier,
yourself.
you asked about going north of Lake Superior. As I think back, we had actually gone to Detroit on the way out, and then cut north of the lakes that way, not north of Lake Superior.
I was wondering because
the listener doesn't care, but if my wife listens to this, she'll call me out on it if I don't
She's
point
not
that
gonna
out.
listen.
We did go to a Tigers game in Detroit. And so we went to 3 baseball games on that trip.
I'm looking at a map right now, and that's a big difference in trip from going up and around the lakes to going through Detroit there. So
yeah. And
thank
then
you for clarifying.
Detroit is actually, if you got to go south to get into Canada from Detroit.
Right. That's one of those Trivial Pursuit questions from the 80s.
Yes.
That,
we did that.
I don't remember how it's worded, but the Canada is south of Detroit.
Right.
All right, Dave, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
I've never heard you so quiet for so long. It's amazing.
Well, no, I just wanted to take in the trips.
Well, you're in charge, so why don't you tell us about your trip and take us through this movie?
Yeah, well, so I what's kind of interesting, the trip that I would pick kind of takes the same itinerary as the Griswolds did. And so the first time I ever went over to Europe, and I've been to Europe twice, both times, it's been Sonia and I traveling solo. And we in 2005, we went to London, then to Paris, and then down through, so we never went to Germany. That's the one big difference. And then when we went down to Italy, we went to a number of cities aside from Rome. So we were in Venice, we were in Florence, and then Cinque Terre as well. And for me, what I loved about that trip, I mean, it's one of the best trips I've ever taken. And after I was done, I mean, 2005, obviously I'm a handful of years out of college, and part of the reason we took this trip is we knew that pretty soon we were going to start looking at having kids, and we wanted to take kind of one last big trip, just the two of us. And I had never studied abroad. When I got into college, I was very kind of a heads down student, wanted to get done as quickly as I could to get into the working world. And now I'd go, why did I approach things that way? And so for me, this trip was probably the closest to that kind of an experience. I mean, we were out there, I think, for about 2.5 weeks. And what I loved about the trip, and Brad, kind of what you're talking about on your trip, is, I'd done a lot of traveling, and from an independent standpoint, I guess it's not like it was like my first long flight or first time navigating a city I didn't know or things like that. But the way that we traveled was a little different in that even though we were going out there, we had our Eurail passes, so that we knew we were going to travel by train and we knew where we wanted to go. But we only made one reservation the whole time, and that was for our first night in London. We got a hotel room there. And after that, we thought, you know what, we'll just stay in each city as long as we want. So we did some really cool things. Like our first night in London, we went to go see We Will Rock You, which is like this Queen musical that hadn't come over to the States yet. I think one of my favorite places was we stayed a couple extra days in Paris. We saw most of the main sites in Paris, but I just loved waking up in the morning. We kind of stayed in this like we didn't stay in any hostels, but we were pretty, we were kind of hostel adjacent, right? The one thing we talked about is we wanted to try to not stay in any places that had shared bathrooms. So no Ellen Griswold with a, washcloth on her face while some dude walks in moments.
I got a fun fact about that, which we'll get to later.
All right. Well, the guy is Hagrid. Is that your fun fact?
Oh my God, you just gave it away.
I got you.
Damn it, Pete.
Robbie Coltrane.
Come on.
I just heard that this morning, actually. So anyway, sorry, Pete. But then
Dave, he's always
Paris,
stealing the thunder.
we did so much walking around the city, and every morning we'd wake up and they had, you know, the place we were staying in was like this little old building. It almost had like funhouse type hallways and walkways, and that they were all kind of slanted and crooked. We'd go down and you know, we'd grab some coffee down in the lobby and then just go to like a little crepe stand or, you know, things like that for breakfast. And I don't know, it was just really fun. You know, the closest thing in traveling in the US, I went with one time to New York with my mom, and where we stayed was right next to Central Park. And every morning I'd just go down, I'd go run in Central Park and kind of grab breakfast somewhere for the two of us at like a bodega or whatever, and, you know, run that back up. And it was just kind of like a nice independent trip. And, you know, we just kind of backpacked wherever we went. And it was a great trip. Now, that is not why this is my favorite vacation movie, but I will say that given that we kind of traveled that same span, that you know, it helped when I went back and viewed these. So if we want to get into the movie, and again, Brad, you want to be on because you have always kind of, it's been a little thorn in your side. I think that this is my favorite vacation movie.
I found it's not just me after talking to our other hosts here.
Right.
And you're gonna have some convincing to do on this one, Dave.
I mean, I am at a loss.
The
more I think about it, the more I can't believe it.
Well, here's what I'll say with that is I'm gonna do some explaining around that. I know that it's not a popular opinion, and anybody that's gonna be listening to these, I know that I am in the minority when it comes to thinking that this is the best one. But I have my reasons, and a lot of it I think has to do with that. I do think this movie is different from the other ones. And there's some things that I've broken down where I go, this is different, and it just hits me in a different way. I do think that a big part of this has to do with the fact that this was the first one I saw in the theaters. So I saw this in the theaters, and you know, at the age I'm at when this comes out, you know, the fact that there's the amount of nudity in it that there is, I mean, that's the thing is I'm sitting in the theater as a little kid just going, I will never not love this movie.
Well, I wrote that down. I remember that, but it's a PG-13 movie, and I am just shocked that there was as much nudity.
Is it PG-13?
It's PG-13. It's crazy.
It's PG-13.
It seems like it's Vacation. The first one was an R movie, right? That we
yes,
discussed.
it was. And this one,
what was worse about the first one?
Well, there's more language in the first one.
Yeah, but I mean, come on.
Well, and I don't know, is this a Breakfast Club drug use thing? You know, Audrey's smoking weed and
it could be.
Oh, that could be.
Maybe.
Actually.
Yeah, it could have been the drugs.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So
I think that's also why Dave likes this movie, the drugs.
Well, in the second one here, I watched them with my kids, and when I put this one in, I said, I was like, all right, girls, there's going to be a scene in here that's probably going to be a little uncomfortable. And I was thinking of the aerobics scene, right? And thinking like, that's going to be weird watching that with them.
I forgot about that one.
The Bordello, or not Bordello, but the show that Clark brings Ellen to and everything. And, but then Rusty starts hooking up with that girl in Germany. And I'm like, oh, I forgot. That's
the one that I remembered.
That's the one I remembered too.
Right.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about that. And the minute he's flirting with her at the pretzel stand or whatever, I was like, oh my God, buckle up. there's one more scene here. So, but yeah, so there's just things that are different about this movie. But then I do think some of it is too. This is the first one I saw in the theaters. And we were talking a little bit before we started this, the original Vacation movie. I don't know if I ever actually have ever, and honestly, up until this most recent viewing, I don't know if I'd ever actually sat through it from beginning to end ever. It was one of those cable movies where I would see little bits here and there. And then there's just, I mean, and it's like even when we get together, right? There's little sayings in there that I do think are funny, like, real tomato ketchup, Eddie, and, just little things like that, right? I have to say that well, so I'll if we want, we can kind of kick the conversation off by I have about 5 bullet points as to why I think this one is better than the others. And it kind of relates back to some of them. It will mean we jump around a little bit, but are you guys okay with that?
I have 5 bullets for anybody who thinks
it's your
this is the
show.
best movie.
Thank goodness I'm in another town, Gifford.
Or shotguns.
Because of our beautiful Second Amendment. Our beautiful. So, anyway, okay, so here's the first one. And just right off the bat, when I was rewatching these, I think that the opening to European Vacation is the best opening scene of the 4. And so the whole pig in the poke thing, I thought it was funny them being on the pig in the poke. They bring in this family of geniuses and they kind of luck their way in, right? I think it's a great scene, but here's what it's competing with. The closest one to me is Christmas Vacation and the Road Rage deal.
Yeah.
Oh, that was. Oh my.
Do you
God,
honestly think I don't know that?
Come on.
I do not like the whole. I don't like the family truckster scene in the first one.
With Eugene Levy. Are you serious?
I don't like that scene. I was watching it and I'm like, this is dragging for me.
Oh my God.
And then in Vegas Vacation,
I'm so glad I can't see your face right now.
Oh, Clark's driving home and recklessly, and he's looking at his vacation brochure, and so he's almost seeing kids in his neighborhood. Like
that first scene's pretty stupid. I'll agree to that.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I felt like between that and then them having the barbecue at home where you get to see Johnny Lawrence and everything, I'm like, this movie's just starting better for me than the other one.
Hold on one second, though. I will say that in that scene where the game show host is making out with Audrey, that's a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I think that's really funny, and I had to explain to my kids. Okay. I was telling them about Richard Dawson, and you've made a fine woman, or whatever. Like I just said, this is old game show culture.
Well, so speaking of the beginning of the movie, if I can add one thing here, I did not realize till I watched it this time that this was directed by Amy Heckerling.
Okay, that's another one I'm going to get to.
And so I'm like, okay, so she had a nice run there with Fast Times, and then she did Johnny Dangerously, and now this one. And so thinking of those movies that I really like, I'm like, this should have been better. And it made me think, well, maybe I'm going to like it more this time, because I didn't realize she directed it, and maybe it's been a long time. I honestly went into this with a very open mind, and that made it even more open. And then William Zabka, I noticed right away. I forgot he was in it. It's a very small role.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yes.
Hey, yeah, you're right. Johnny Lawrence, good start.
An important role, yes.
So those two things gave me a little hope, but we'll go on.
And so there are a couple scenes that I think when you have Amy Heckerling directing this are a little different than what you have in the franchise. So that was one thing, is I just thought the opening scene, I just liked this opening scene better than the other ones. You guys are going to hate one of my next notes, which is I think this is the best Rusty.
And I say he's the worst Rusty. And
he's
it's not even
the worst
close.
Rusty. Yes.
I think and again,
I know you think he's the best. So
maybe it's from when I went to see it in the theaters or whatever. I think this Rusty is awesome. I
think this Rusty's sister is hot. He's Jason Lively. His sister is Blake Lively.
Oh, Blake Lively. Okay.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, I did not know that fun fact.
Yeah, I didn't know he's. I will say that, like, physically, from an appearance standpoint, he looks to me like what is it? Oh shoot, the guy that Clockwork Orange guy, Malcolm McDowell.
Oh,
I feel like he looks like a young Malcolm McDowell, but that's so to me. And that's what I was wondering, is that's kind of what I wanted to kind of put it up against. I do think, first of all, I love Anthony Michael Hall. I just think in the first Vacation movie, they don't really give him much to do. He makes some dry comments here or there, but like he's just kind of along for the ride, in my opinion. And whereas this Rusty, what I like about this Rusty is this Rusty, like, he got after it, man. Like he's getting in trouble. He's like, I mean, he's going out with a hooker. He's he's constantly taking chances and he still has some of those
I'll take that then, and I'll raise you Ethan Embry if we're gonna. I mean, I think that he plays that particular role way better in Vegas Vacation.
I did like Ethan Embry, and I had never. So that's the other thing, and I don't know if I had already said it, but I had never seen Vegas Vacation until just now.
Yeah.
So that was my first time seeing this one. I did like Ethan Embry's character. I did like the juxtaposition between him and Chevy losing all his money and everything. But still, it's just, and that one for me, I think this is the Rusty I grew up with, right? Whereas, and then Jonathan Galecki or whatever in Christmas Vacation, I just feel like, again, not much there to do.
Well, that one's different too because he's the younger sibling, which is the only time in the series where they do that. So it's just a little different in that way. But
so in this one and in the original one, do we know if Rusty's older than Audrey?
We actually discussed that last week. I
covered in the first
Rusty
episode.
was older, but it maybe is never actually stated.
I wasn't sure. And then actually in the original Vacation, because she's the one who gets the pot, I thought maybe she is older.
Well, and in real life, one of the things I brought up was that she's actually older than him, which I found surprising, but I always thought he was the older sibling, so.
Yeah. But yeah, so and even in this one, even though Jason Lively's taller, I don't know which one's older. You know, that they don't specify it or say anything.
Well, and that was one point that I had written down, because I know at one point in the movie, Rusty says that he's 15, but we never learn what Audrey's age is. I assume she's younger just because of the massive height difference, but that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but then with her relationship with
the fact that she's making out with Jack at home,
that would make her seem older.
She is so highly sexualized in this movie because you got the game show host making out with her and grabbing her butt. You've got her making out with her boyfriend, and then the scene in Germany where they're eating bratwurst and she sees it and she's like, "Oh, I miss him so much." I mean, it's like, God, if she's not at least adult age, this is really, really,
really wrong. Yeah. Well, and I will say, when I say this is my favorite vacation movie, I think one of the things is that I just don't have the connection or the affinity for this series that I think the rest of you guys do.
Well,
and
learning that you saw this one before the original, that does actually make a little more sense to me now. I don't agree with you in any way, shape, or form. But that is the one thing you've stated that makes me maybe understand your viewpoint a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, this isn't like I never saw any of the Indiana Jones movies and then I only saw the third one. This is,
That's me.
But in that case, the third one's the best.
You're a good listener.
But you did see Witness, though. You saw Witness.
I cannot believe that you didn't see the Star Wars movies or the first two Indiana Jones, and then you went to Witness.
His first Harrison Ford experience was Witness.
I mean, I didn't say, "Hey, Mom, there's this movie called Witness. Can we go?"
But I mean, and that's when we've talked about earlier years, though. That is kind of the weird thing is that some of your pop culture experiences when you're younger are kind of opportunistic, right? Like you can't drive, so you're going to the movies to see whatever you can get to.
And I saw the first one before this, so that makes a lot more sense to hear that part.
And so here's another one. And
can we stick to the kids for a minute though, if you're moving on?
Oh, sure.
Because I don't know if you guys, but I had a couple I just wanted to add. So you talked about how you love Rusty, and I will say, I mean, I want to like him. I don't hate him in this movie. I don't think he's as good as any other one, but I think he actually does an okay job. But the one question I had about him, what is with that stupid hat that he wears with the flaps down the back all the time?
So did you see what it said?
He looked better in the beret than in that stupid hat.
I don't disagree. Now, that's the thing is that hat is probably something I thought looked pretty cool back then. Do you know what that hat was?
No, tell me.
It was a Duran Duran hat.
Oh.
So it said Duran Duran on it, and then I couldn't see what the rest of it said.
Okay, so now you're bringing the knowledge. That helps.
Wow, Dave is bringing some good insight, explaining all the flaws in the movie.
That's the 80s. That's the 80s part, though. Duran Duran.
But that's the thing is, like, so I remember, and it would have been around that time of, like, I remember a kid in my school had like a old painter's cap that was Def Leppard Pyromania, and it had the building with the little thing on top, the little target site or whatever.
Mhm.
And I remember just thinking, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
And
so you're
and
saying that was a
wear
thing.
that around today, it'd be like, okay, dork, but that's the thing is, so much of 80s, the fashion montage, I mean, we can skip ahead. That fashion montage is ridiculous, but that is another scene where I go, I feel like that's different than the rest of the series, and I think that's an Amy Heckerling thing. And as dumb as like the fashions and everything else are, I do think it establishes some character traits, and it's intending to be fun.
I don't even hate that scene. Okay, I had two more comments about the kids. So Rusty, I think, maybe has my favorite line in the movie when he says, "Dad, I think he's going to pork her."
Right.
Rusty, he's not going to pork her.
He's not going to pork her.
That's legitimately funny.
He may pork her.
And then we talked about the kids a lot in the last episode. No matter how much I want to like Rusty, Audrey in this movie is so off-putting to me. I cannot.
Yeah, she's terrible.
Right.
Her voice, her demeanor, the character overall.
Whining constantly.
I liked Dana Barron. She is just, she ruins the movie almost single-handedly.
Well,
I can't handle it. And sad because I found out that she died at 32 years old.
Yeah, sadly, yes. She died of complications from diabetes.
I don't like saying it, but my goodness, that character is just awful.
Well, what's I mean, if this is my favorite Rusty, it actually is my least favorite Audrey.
We agree on something. That's
great.
But
I'll take that trade-off. And that, I mean, I think a lot of this is, I thought that Rusty was so freaking cool, when I went and saw this in the theaters. And then, and so when you're talking about Amy Heckerling, I already brought up the fashion montage. The other one, though, when they're flying out, and I think that's the thing is
sequences.
What's that?
Dream sequences.
Yeah, the dream so the dream sequence scene, again, I think is a little different than the other movies, in that it helps kind of establish where each character's head is at when it comes to this, versus I do think a lot of the other movies we start off on that Clark is like, all-American dad, wants time with his family, and really everyone's just kind of reacting off of that. Whereas I think that, with that dream sequence thing, it does kind of put, it lets you know where each of their heads are at, and allows each of them to have a moment. Now, when I was watching that scene with the girls, it made me laugh because, first of all, I do think Audrey's dream is disturbing and weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like but I loved Kai Ming, like, just was that at that point, the movie lost her a little bit. She goes, "This is so dumb. Why doesn't she just stop eating?" I'm like, it's a nightmare.
I thought those were stupid. The only one I liked was Clark's. I thought it was funny because they changed the words, and the words were kind of funny, but overall, that was a wasted time scene.
And I know that at the time, Rusty, the European tour, I know that I was like, oh man, he's so cool. And then I thought Ellen's was kind of funny. And I will say in general,
what's Ellen's again?
Well, it's the Prince Charles and Princess Di and the Queen. Oh, they meet them all.
Right. They did a good job of making the actors look like the people.
Yeah. So her dream is that she wants to be seen on Clark's arm, and that they're this like worldly couple and everything else. And one of the issues, again, I watched this back to back with the original Vacation with my kids, and Ellen, first of all, Beverly D'Angelo is like a woman who is one of the big crushes for me when I was a kid. I thought Ellen Griswold was a stone cold fox.
Well,
And
so first of all, just to follow up, did you know she was only 31 years old in the original Vacation?
I didn't.
So she's like
Yes, she's like
33 in this one.
35.
So she's
Or
younger than you
33, yeah.
think. But I wrote down, I think she looks even younger in this one than in the first one. And I wrote down, she looks good. I mean,
Yeah.
she looks good in this movie.
Well, and you know, and I know that obviously she had some work done and stuff, but she looks very good in Vegas Vacation. I was surprised at how good she looked in Vegas Vacation as well.
She never really changes.
Well, and that's the thing is, and you know, I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. Like, if you know, she's married to Al Pacino now, and if you see her at like award
She
shows,
is?
oh yeah, she's been married to Al Pacino for quite a while.
Oh my God, I
And,
did not know.
and if
Wow.
you see her at like award shows and stuff, I mean, you know, it's like Christy Alley, where you know she's just gotten older and bigger, and you know, again, I'm not trying to be mean about that or whatever, but it's one of those things where she looks so much different now than back then, and I had a big crush on Ellen. I will say between these two, and that's so the way this movie treats Ellen versus the first one, again, is another reason why I like this one better. That first one, I gotta tell you, they get in a big fight. She catches him skinny dipping with a lady, and when he comes back up, she's like, "Oh, Clark, I'm just not spontaneous enough. Let's go skinny dip." Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like and that's another one I'll say here. In this movie versus the other ones, Clark can be a bit of a creep in the other ones.
Yeah, he's
And-
not perfect.
Well, no, and I know he's not, but like that's the thing is in that first movie, I was like, wow, you know, they're like, I don't know, like so in this movie, their conflict comes from that he didn't erase that tape. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a stupid mistake, but it's not that Clark is running around Europe, you know, ogling over all these other women and wanting to, you know, run off with them while Ellen's just standing there or whatever. They just get in a fight because he did something dumb, but like it doesn't have to do with him straying away from Ellen. So I think in that regard, I like that as well. You know, better than the first movie.
What's the point of the whole thief thing? Like, why is
and again, this is not a perfect movie. And at the end, so the biggest criticism, well, obviously you guys don't think it's a perfect movie, but I love all the different, I think it's fun to go to all the different locations. I think that part's fun. I do think where this movie really falls apart is when they get to Rome, and I think it's because they thought this is a vacation movie. We've got to have some like huge, you know, conflict at the end. Like, and that's one thing in all of the movies. Like, I just thought they all get a little bonkers at the end, like too much for me. And you know, it's like with the SWAT team and stuff coming in at Christmas. Like, it's just it's too much.
or in the first one?
But that was where, Dave, to me, they had to force in some kind of a plot, so there was some kind of a happy ending, and it felt like shoehorned in there. That storyline.
I totally agree.
Where that's what to me made the other movies so much better. It's like because they had a common goal in the first Vacation, they were just trying to get to Wally World, and that was what the whole movie was about. And Christmas Vacation had its own as well. And I don't know. That's what I didn't like about it. Yeah.
No,
and there's other side stories and everything.
I do think it falls apart a little bit. And to your point, Gifford, on what you're asking, that is the one thing. It makes no sense that these guys that are robbing this bank, and it's almost like they asked the guy, "Can we throw you in this trunk?" Why do they need to throw him in the Griswold's trunk?
And not only that, but then they try to get the guy back because they got to get the car back. So then why did they put him in the trunk and then give them the Griswolds the car when they need to just get him back? I just really didn't understand any of that.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. It is just a device that's set up so that this guy can hit on Ellen, and Ellen can, and even though she's hurt, she can profess that, but I still love Clark. Like that's all that's set up for. And that so that they can then, Clark can chase her down and all that. And so no, the one, when the movie gets to Rome, the movie kind of falls apart, in my opinion. But up until then, I really like it. And so one of the last things I'll throw out there, just when it comes to different things that I liked about this movie versus the other ones. So, what is one of the mainstays for Chevy Chase when it came to his rising popularity on SNL? What was he known for outside of Weekend Update?
Physical humor.
Pratfalls, physical humor, all that stuff, right? And so you think, and when I and what I realized is, my for him being in a couple of comedies that are probably even top 5 for me, it's amazing how few Chevy Chase movies I like. I could maybe come up with a list of 5 that I like, and that's the thing is, so this one I feel like that scene in Germany is probably the best physical comedy setup of all the movies for him. When it comes to I thought the whole dancing thing with all of them and him starting to get more and more pissed off, and I thought it was very, I personally, when I was watching that scene, I was like, I thought it was really well done. And
we talked about the sheer brilliance of a physical comedy in Vacation last week, so you must have missed out on those scenes when you watched it.
Well, so in the first Vacation movie, there's 2 things physically that I thought were pretty funny. I do think it's funny when he goes and hits the deck when the bartender pulls the shotgun, and how he pops up right away.
That's good.
I thought that was very funny. And then when he's doing the goofy stuff with the sandwich, I thought that's pretty funny.
How about when he's trying to put gas in the car?
But even so that's the thing is I just, when I watched European Vacation, I go, this dancing scene with the German guys hits at what he's really good at way better than anything that I think exists in the other movies.
But they tried to overdo it too, though. In the European Vacation movie, it was like they would cut to him for a clip where he just falls over or trips over something or whatever, and it just didn't, for whatever reason, it just didn't feel natural. It felt like they were just trying to force it, whereas in the Vacation movies, he ad-libbed a lot of that. And I just think it made it better. And it just, I don't know if it was I don't know what it was about European Vacation that just didn't make it as funny.
Scene that it ends that they get in a big fight too, and everybody's so mad.
One of the
then
things
they're gonna hang him.
I thought that Germans would be prone to violence, though.
This movie, I just felt like this movie had a weird vibe right off the bat, and much of it, especially in France, but then I guess this Germany part too, it's just so mean-spirited. I don't feel any of the heart or any of the emotion in this movie that I see in the others. I don't buy into any of the love of the family in this movie. Right. And I do in all the others, even in Vegas Vacation more so than this one. I just don't get it out of this at all.
Well, see, actually that was one of the notes I had about the original one. So the fact that, and again, these are scenes where there are things that you can quote in them that make me laugh, but the back-to-back, them being in St. Louis and as much as I think the whole rib tip scene is funny and everything, that scene does not age well. And then immediately they're right back at Cousin Eddie's place, and you've got molestation jokes. You've got, it was kind of I was like, oh, a really rough depiction of black people, and then a really rough depiction of kind of, for lack of a better term, white trash,
But you liked Audrey getting groped by the game show host.
Again,
thought it was funny.
I know. I'm not saying I loved it. I didn't cheer it. What a story. I didn't cheer it on. The minute it happened, I was like, oh yeah,
Dave, I think he's gonna porker.
So I get what you're saying on their interpersonal dynamics to a certain extent. I do think that so what I did I thought the other scene in Germany where they go and they visit the who they think are their relatives at sex, we're looking for sex, Dad. I thought that scene was kind of like the fact that they had like this nice night. They were oblivious to the fact that these people didn't know who they were. They had this nice night, and Ellen and Clark are getting, and then like even Rusty coming in and like, hey Dad, bedpans, and all. Like I don't know. All that stuff strikes me as I thought it was funny, and I enjoyed it this time around. Whereas it's and so I'm not the authority on this because these movies just don't hit me the way they do some other people.
Sure.
So
I don't know what you
what
got.
other
I do
things?
have a list of a few things that I liked about this movie. I don't know how we're gonna what you got next here, where we're at, but
Pretty short list, huh?
yeah.
That is for the sake of not pissing off any fans of the franchise. I will rest my case there in that I'm just saying that I do think this is the best one, and I feel like I've at least got reasons for my argument. I'm not just throwing
Dave?
it out.
And that's the hill you're going to die on, Dave.
It is.
You know what, Dave? This is America, and the great thing about America is everyone has an opinion, and you can have your opinion.
Thanks, Denny.
Thanks, Denny.
Yeah. I will say you didn't convince me of anything at all, but I will say the fact that you saw this movie and related to it and Rusty so much before seeing any of the others, that gives me some perspective that it makes some sense, and so I appreciate hearing that.
Oh, I do want to say one last thing. I have two little things when I'm looking at my notes from actually watching the movie. So Kai Ming did ask at one point if Ellen was Amy Poehler's mom, and I just thought that was kind of funny because they love Parks and Rec.
Oh, I do. You mean Park and Rec?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
So I did love that, but the other one, and this line made me laugh out loud, and I did put it on there. So when Audrey makes her call to Jack in England, and then they get the bill, and they cut to and he yells Audrey, and then they're driving, and she's crying and everything, and Ellen goes, he's not really going to cut off his balls. I don't know why. That and are you Clark? And that line did make me laugh out loud, like testes laugh out loud.
Here's a line that kind of made me laugh out loud. So the porker was the one, but the other one it's so stupid that he crawls into the wrong room and the wrong bed. But when he gets into that bed with that woman in the first hotel and he says, I've got a mild case of herpes to her.
Yeah, that was funny.
Try to get out of the room. I thought that was pretty funny.
Which, by the way, is like a go-to for Chevy Chase because he does that in Fletch.
Oh.
Do you remember when he's going to get pulled over? He's going to get pulled over, like he sequesters that vehicle, and there's that bewildered kid in there and everything. And when he gets pulled, he says something about having a mild case of herpes there too. So
I'm
curious if anybody else. Oh, sorry, Brad. We were on you.
Sorry. Okay, I'll just finish. I got 2 or 3 more here, quick. The scene that I remember the most from being younger is the roundabout scene, Big Ben, Parliament.
Which again, I think is really funny.
I wrote down. I forgot how it gets dark and he starts to go crazy. I thought that was really funny at the end of it this time.
Yeah,
because he goes bonkers and it's good Chevy Chase and it's really funny at the end.
See, and I thought that was kind of forced the way he laughed and giggled and he contorted his face.
I can completely agree with you on that too, but I'm just trying to say
he's trying to be nice.
I thought one of the best scenes in the movie had nothing to do with comedy when they're going through the Louvre and it's all the quick cutting and the punk rock song is playing. I thought that was a great scene. That was fun. Yeah. It's not funny or anything.
And to me, that's an Amy Heckerling thing, right? Yeah. I just go, there are things stylistically in this movie that are different than the rest of the ones in the series.
So, and then that's all I got. I wrote down, I forgot at the very end when they hit the Statue of Liberty with the plane, I just wrote, "Oh, brother."
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
Love
And
that.
the size of the
Terrible.
plane compared to the statue. I mean, everything's just wrong.
it made me think of Kristen Wiig when she does her mom movie reviews.
I give it a gag.
Oh, brother.
So
But I did find a few things that I liked, so that was my list.
right.
Did anybody else pick up on the direct reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yes, just a flesh wound.
Oh yeah. When Eric
that
Idle
whole
says-
thing, that whole thing was almost a reenactment of the famous scene in that movie, and it's the same
Black
actor
Knight.
too. So it's Eric Idle is his name from Monty Python.
Yeah, my girls are big fans of the Holy Grail, so they loved when he popped up and I said, "Girls, he's in Monty Python." They're like, "Oh yeah," because he's the brave Sir Robin in there too. But then when he said, "Oh, it's just a flesh wound," they were dying. They thought it was
Question,
so
Dave. I've been meaning to ask this since the beginning because you brought up you watched both with your kids. So did they like one more than the other? Did they like the original?
I did not set up, by the way, I did not set up where I stood on any of them, and we watched all four of them.
Oh, they watched all four.
Yeah, we watched all four. Their two favorites were this in Vegas.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I would have thought your kids would have liked the Christmas one at least. That's crazy.
They did like it.
Yeah.
They did like it. I would say their least favorite was probably the first one.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't. I'm basing that off of their reactions and their comments during the movie, but after the first one, I was worried that they weren't going to want to watch the rest of them. They didn't think much of it.
I also don't remember. We talked about the credits in the original and how we liked how it ended. I don't remember the song, but it had a horrible song at the end. The credits at the end were terrible in this. They're nothing like the others. It's just, I had no good feelings at the end of this.
Right. I was actually mad at Dave. I watched this last night, and all I kept thinking was he owes me $3 for the rental off of
you had to rent
Amazon.
it? They're all on HBO, but I guess.
I don't get HBO. So a couple of things that I liked about the movie: Eric Idle, all his scenes. He's just wonderful.
That's true. I could have written that down.
On that topic, before we move on to your next one, but Eric Idle and Chevy Chase became really good friends after this movie, and they started working on another vacation movie, but then they scrapped it. It was Australian Vacation, which sounds like it would have been terrible. I don't know, but they couldn't come up with that many good jokes. It was all about, what I read was they had a few jokes about sharks, but that was all the further they got.
And then Crocodile Dundee came out and stole their thunder.
Right, stole their thunder. Right. I like that I learned that Clark W. Griswold is Wilhelm.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that previously. I like that the hotel manager in England was the albino from Princess Bride.
Yes.
Mel Smith.
Mr.
I did not notice that.
Yep.
And they were going to get they tried to get Mr. Bean for that role, the actor that played Mr. Bean, but he didn't take it or whatever.
The dirty guy with the t-shirt
with his mom. Yep. With his mom sitting in the hotel.
Wow, I did not put that together at all.
Yep. What else did I have on here? Oh, as a tile guy, I had a really hard time with Clark and Ellen's shower at their home. It looked like there was siding on the inside of their shower. So
that whole
I did not notice that.
Well, that whole scene, the whole big spender, her doing that dance and everything, that whole bathroom doesn't look like it's really a bathroom.
No, it looks like an exterior of a home because there's siding in their shower.
Right. Well, and that's it. I mean, it looks like it's kind of like, oh, we put a shower curtain up in a video store and we're pretending that this is a bathroom kind of thing.
The houses are really close together in that neighborhood.
And the last thing I had, fun little fact here. So this movie brought in $49 million in the domestic box office. It actually opened at number 1. So it was a moneymaker with a budget of 17 million, and the majority of that went to fixing the Statue of Liberty afterwards.
And amazingly, what movie did it knock off the top of the charts when it hit number one in the theaters?
Well, I'm guessing since it came out 2 years later, it might have been the first vacation movie because that is an awesome movie.
Well, hold on. So this is 85, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is 85. I mean, did it knock off like a future, like Back to the Future after like X amount
It
of
was,
weeks?
yes, it was Back to the Future, which had been out for some time, and it stayed number one for 3 more weeks, and then Back to the Future regained the top spot.
Retook the mantle.
No kidding.
By the way,
Yes.
speaking of how it did and everything, I brought up the original Vacation got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
So I just looked this up for Dave. Critics 34%, and audience, which is usually way high, 49%. So Dave, you are definitely in a small boat on this one.
Yeah. Dave,
I mean,
Dave is
this is
a
not
bigger
a-
minority in
this
this
is
argument
not a
than Brad was in a
popular-
connecting flight to Detroit.
And that was Dave just in the last week, just clicking on Rotten Tomatoes many times.
Well, and unfortunately, I may have contributed. Did I contribute when I rented it from Amazon? Oh, here's somebody else who likes it. They rented it.
I got a couple more fun facts about the movie. Did
Please.
anybody else notice that Griswold was spelled differently? This is the only movie where it's spelled W-A-L-D. All the other movies it's W-O-L-D.
I think because I think it was this
When they
movie
show
I
their
must have
passports.
noticed it ALD because then I had been typing it into things ALD and then
Yeah.
noticed it was wrong and so yeah, that's interesting. Why in the
Yes.
heck?
I didn't notice that. I always thought it was with an A because I thought that was on his jersey in Christmas Vacation.
Oh, Brad, you have that jersey.
That's true.
I guess I always thought it was an O, and I didn't notice that on the passports. I was looking
Yeah.
at like their birth dates when they were there again. I
Can
kind
we
of like
find out who's older than with Rusty and Audrey?
Oh, you know what? And I didn't. I was looking at their birth years, but I guess I didn't clock which one's older based on that. But
Couple,
I
couple
thought
more.
that the passport thing was kind of funny too.
Yeah. Harold Ramis, they wanted to get him to direct this one, but he could not because he was working on Ghostbusters at the time. So that was a good decision by
Dodged a
him.
bullet there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very much.
Yeah.
Although I do wonder, let's say, I didn't know that actually. Let's say that Harold Ramis directed it, and let's say that Anthony Michael Hall had chosen to do it, and then Dana Barron was in it, and you had the same cast. Would it have hit me? Would it have been a better movie then? I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it
here's-
would have been a better movie.
How
Yeah.
much did it matter that those kids?
As
came
much
from-
as I've been falling on my sword for, Jason Lively as Rusty. I mean, in all of the movies, Rusty and Audrey are really not given much to do. So Harold Ramis would have made a difference in that, because I do think there are things in here that make it very clear that it's directed by a woman, and specifically Amy Heckerling. So yeah, Harold Ramis, the movie would have been different. I don't know if it would have been all that different with Anthony Michael Hall and Dana Barron.
I don't think it. I think it was beyond salvaging, but
Right. It's the writing, the scenes, the
Well-
directing probably had something to do with that, but holy
So-
cow.
I mean, let me ask you guys this: in that, I mean, I do remember distinctly seeing, I made the joke that it was a movie that I got to go to at the age I was at. I mean, I was 10 years old when this came out and had nudity, and my mind was blown. Right? Do you guys remember seeing this in the theater? Do you have?
I don't remember if I saw it in the theater or on video.
I'm sure I saw it on video.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't
I'm
recall
guessing
seeing
video.
Well,
Yeah.
and so then my second question would be this, and I'm trying to think of like my headspace at the time of if this was even a thing or not. I mean, obviously, when you're a 10-year-old kid, you're not thinking of things as cynically, but do you get the sense that this movie was just like a cash grab? Well,
That
the
is
first
kind
one
of.
did
I
well.
feel like it was forced, and it was all this European stuff. Like you got to go show these sites, but it was the plot and the writing was just lost in it. It was just nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Can
Sorry,
anyone
Pete,
tell
I think
me?
you had some more fun facts there, Pete.
Just had another one here. Can anyone tell me who played Rusty's girlfriend?
That was,
Oh,
you mean the
yeah.
California girl?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was Moon Unit Zappa.
Moon Unit Zappa. That's correct.
Oh, I
Thank you.
missed that
What do I win? Do I win? I
You-
never
you
have to
get
watch
to-
this movie
You
again?
come back next week.
Yeah. Well, that's all the fun facts I had since Dave ruined my one about Hagrid playing the guy that's in the bathroom.
Okay, do you know what's crazy though? Okay,
Robbie
that-
Coltrane.
Oh,
That's his
crazy.
name.
Yes,
Robbie
I said his
Coltrane.
name
Crazy.
earlier, Robbie Coltrane.
Yes.
Brad, you'll like this. That came up today because I was listening to an episode of Buzz in the Tower, and they were talking about that guy, and I can't remember what context, but then they're like, plus he's the guy that walks in on Ellen in the European Vacation, and he's Hagrid.
He's also in one of the James Bond movies. I think it's GoldenEye. Maybe he's even in a couple of James
Yes.
Bond movies.
Yeah,
but
they mentioned that too, but
he's
the reason
he
we're talking
plays
about
a
him was something
Russian.
different from all that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
All right. Anybody have anything else before we wrap the show?
I just want to repeat that I really tried to like this movie, and
We
I really
did
was.
try.
I
We
was
tried,
actually
Dave.
like when I sat down to watch it, I was excited. Like, if Dave likes this so much, it can't be as bad as I think. And I gave it every chance in the world, and unfortunately, it sucks.
it's my
sucks.
favorite. It's my favorite vacation film.
And now the
And
problem
what
is, I'm questioning my whole relationship with one of my best friends.
Okay, calm down a little bit. Here's what I'll say: it's my favorite vacation film. None of the vacation films probably crack my top 50 of all
and
time.
that's a good point too. To find out that you're not a huge fan of any of them, that does.
Yeah,
also-
it's just not a. It's not a series that I have fond memories of like you guys do.
Sure.
And you won't be back next week, so that's the good news.
All right, but
Get out of here!
yes, thank God.
You've served your purpose.
We are going to have a much better movie on tap next time around when we're going to be having Christmas in July, right? So
And
we'll be
Gifford, you're gonna
talking
run us
about
through that
Christmas,
one, right?
Christmas
will-
Vacation. All right, that's going to be a good one. I'm excited about that one. So thank you all for listening, and we'll close it out with some Preacher Row. Thanks, everyone.
Give us a rating on iTunes, please.
Oh yeah.
Yes, please. All right, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Standing on my own till fear. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. Heart down and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can